All right, everyone, welcome back into another NFL DFS video. Going to be touching on the top showdown plays here for this Monday night showdown between the San Francisco 49ers and the Minnesota Vikings. Now, as hopefully you guys know, yesterday was kind of sweat-free. I told you guys to play Jeff Wilson in the captain spot, and it ended up working out. The reason why we wanted to do that was because we just wanted to load up on the studs on the slate. Ended up working out. It's actually crazy how many times that little kind of seemingly dumb strategy will work out in games and in situations like that. Obviously not a move you would use to take down GPP, but a move that you would use to cash, which was what we were easily able to do. Looking at this game, I will say this line has come down a little bit. I just got done doing a props video. I believe the line was on average set at like 7.2. So it has come down a little bit. And I was saying, I think it's a little bit suspicious. You had the Vikings who have really played well thus far this season. I know the record doesn't really indicate that. A couple of mistakes here or there, or even just bad penalties that probably should have been or shouldn't have been called. And I feel like that's why we're getting this line. Now, the Vikings did play kind of a bad-ish second half against the Chicago Bears, but watching it live and then rewatching it, it did seem like it was very much by design. They just wanted to run out the clock. They're just trying to have long sustained drives. You look at the Philadelphia Eagles, how they're kind of successful is that they can take a clock from 7 minutes to 0 minutes left in a game. That's essentially what the Vikings were trying to do. And on the flip side of it, the Chicago Bears were kind of more than happy to run the football that game as well. And so that's kind of why I think they had that bad second half. Now, they did play well defensively. I feel like they're getting better and better each game. And the biggest takeaway is that we can probably predict that the Vikings are going to continue to do what they've been doing defensively. Brian Flores is blitzing a ton, which means they're going to get home on Brock Purdy a little bit. But that also is going to mean that probably Kyle Shanahan is going to be able to scheme up some pretty open plays. And so that's kind of how I'm going about attacking this slate. When we look at the injuries, the Vikings really, besides Justin Jefferson, that's the biggest injury that they have. Okay. You look at the Niners, going to be without Debo. We already know that. And then Christian McCaffrey, currently questionable. Let's just take a peek at the snaps for the Niners because I feel like that's going to be the most important in terms of noteworthy situations, and also Debo as well. So let's look at both of those. So last week we saw Debo leave the game early, and that actually resulted in Ray McLeod getting 69% of the snaps, which to me was a little bit shocking. I actually thought we'd see Ronnie Bell a little bit more, which is not what happened. Ronnie Bell has actually seen the snaps go down. Well, Ray McLeod is, I don't know, it might have just been situational. It's kind of tough to say. The Thursday night game where I probably overthought it because Jamal Agnew ended up having a big game. And I'm like, it's either Tim Jones or him. They both ended up actually scoring points. That's kind of what it feels like in this game as well when we're looking at that situation. I do think looking at like CMC, we're going to see him more limited in this game. And so because of that, probably a little bit of Jordan Mason and also a decent amount of Elijah Mitchell. Like Jordan Mason is Elijah Mitchell 2.0. Like they are the same back. They're good, hard-nosed runners. Players that typically aren't going to make mistakes, typically going to be, slightly above average. And so we'll start with the Niners here for like which players we want to be on. And yeah, probably still CMC, even if he's only playing about 60% of the snaps, like he still had 14 points in that last game going against the Vikings, which is going to be his easiest matchup recently. And we can see what he did against kind of similar matchups. Cardinals, very easy matchup. The Giants, pretty easy matchup. And the Rams, I would say they're a little bit more difficult now, but been able to go off and have good games. He is expected to play. So like he's going to be good to go is what I'm assuming. So I do think we're going to be trying to play CMC in our build. Now, the one player I'm kind of cautious about is actually Brandon Ayuk. I know he gets a fantastic matchup in this game, but if there's one player that I feel like really elevates the team in terms of big plays, in terms of wide open plays, is actually Deebo Samuel, because the way that Kyle Shanahan uses him, you kind of always have to account for him. So when you take away kind of that gadget type player, then I feel like defensively you can kind of scheme a little bit better a guy like Brandon Ayuk. And so I do think that they're going to be able to kind of shadow him a little bit more, Ayuk that is. So I don't know. I feel like he's going to be very popular on the slate, and part of the reason why I don't want to be on him is because of that. Now, if you end up on him, I'm perfectly fine with it. Brock Purdy, I just got done doing the props video, and all the prop data was pretty much telling us that he's not going to score over 15.5 fantasy points. Do with that what you will. I personally think he might have a good game, but I think he'll come at the hands of big plays being schemed open. And I know if you guys have watched my previous videos, I kind of had the George Kittle rule, is what I'm calling it now. Whereas a lot of the times with George Kittle, the only way you are playing him is if you are playing him in the captain spot. I kind of say that with a bunch of players sometimes on these showdown slates. I'm not saying that's exactly the case tonight with George Kittle, because I do think with Deebo Samuel, he still could have a solid game without absolutely breaking the slate. But at the same time, it does feel like you could be heavily overweight on the top scorer by doing that. And so I still might end up like favoring George Kittle more in the captain spot than in the flex. Like my ownership might be higher on him in the captain spot than the flex. Then we continue on. Like for me, I feel like we're just trying to take a look at Juwan Jennings. He should be able to have a pretty solid game, and he's at such a cheap price tag that you can really make him work. He's the player that I expect to get the next amount of snaps. Like it's going to be Brandon Ayuk, Juwan Jennings on the inside, and then we're probably just going to see Ray McLeod operate out of the slot. I wouldn't be surprised if it is Ronnie Bell. They're kind of the similar player. Like I feel like if you're playing one of those, you make another lineup and use the other one. And so I am going to be playing Juwan Jennings, kind of priced up, a little bit risk reward there. And then from there, like, I don't know, I just don't feel like we need to play anyone else. If you want to go Niners defense, sure. If you want to go Moody, you could. We'll come back to this. George Kittle we want. And so now let's go ahead and get into the Vikings. So when we're looking at the Minnesota Vikings here, it's weird because like I feel like Kirk Cousins has played a lot better than people really have given him credit for thus far this season. A lot of the times people will like rate a quarterback based off of the Kirk Cousins line, which I'm fully switching that, and I want to make it a known thing that it's now the Derek Carr line. Like, is a player above average or below average? That's the Derek Carr line. Is he good enough to win you games? Is he good enough to lose you games? That's the Derek Carr line. Because Kirk Cousins, really, if you look at his passes, he's been like one of the best passers in the league. It's like the reason why they're losing is not because of Kirk Cousins. Like, let's make that very clear. Now he's going to be without Justin Jefferson this game. That's going to be unfortunate. Last game against Chicago, he just didn't really need to go off. They were really trying to establish the run. Given the fact that they are 7-point dogs, you kind of expect them to be throwing the football a little bit more. And if we can get Cousins throwing 50, 40, 40, I do think he's going to put up 20 DraftKings points. Just the question is, can we afford that? Because all of his other weapons are going to be pretty cheap. Like you got Jordan Addison, who I love as a talent. He only had 5 targets in that last game, which to me was a little bit shocking. But he does have that big play upside. Once again, they didn't really need a pass in the second half. It seemed like they made a conscious effort not to. And so the fact that we can get Jordan Addison at 7.6, I really love. You can get KJ Osborne, the next best passing option in that offense, at a cheap price tag. He had all of his production in the first half. Anyone that follows my props coverage knows why I'm upset about that. Anyways, he's been solid. And if Cousins is going to look to him as frequently as he was, I think that's going to be a good option for us at such a cheap price tag. I do want to call it Alexander Mattison because he was someone that was productive in the passing game last week. To me, like, again, I think they made a conscious effort to take low risk plays, very low risk plays. They ran Madison. They were doing check downs on third down. Like, really, the Bears were playing back, and Kirk Cousins, he does this a lot, unfortunately. Check down, check down, check down. Just really trying to kill the clock, keep the clock running, and they did that, and they won. It wasn't really a stressful game. I know they only won by 6. It's a classic Vikings game, it seems like, under Kevin O'Connell. And so to me, especially against the Niners, I'm probably staying away from Alexander Mattison. That being said, we do have some potential good value, I will say. Like, Cam Akers was not involved the last week. I was a little bit shocked by that. He has been impressive to me since he's joined the Vikings. I think he looks better with them than he did with the Rams. I do want to call out this play, Brendan Powell. He's going to be cheap. And once again, if they are going to have to be throwing the football, like Vegas is saying is going to happen, Brendan Powell is definitely going to be an extremely interesting value play. We go ahead and take a peek at the Minnesota Vikings snap counts. We have seen Brendan Powell playing a bunch of snaps. He literally went in and played basically the snaps for Justin Jefferson, but in replace of Justin Jefferson. And then Brendan Powell last week had 58% of the snaps. So, we got 2 pretty good values in this game between Juwan Jennings and also Powell. The thing with it is they are at a very kind of similar price tag as well. And so it's really just whichever one you want to go with. If you're trying to fit CMC into the captain spot, you might have to go with both. And I'd be fine with that, I think. So let's show you guys kind of the builds I'm looking at. I will be going like this. I feel like this is such a solid, safe build. Now, I don't like the fact that we're fading both the quarterbacks because I do think they should be able to have a decent game. But like another probably simple approach you could go with is CMC, Kittle. Like I want to play those 2. I do like, I don't know. I feel like Jordan Addison has more upside than does KJ Osborne. For this specific build, I do want to fit in Brandon Powell because he's a cheap option. And then we have so much salary left over that it really doesn't matter. Like if you want to fit in Powell or Ayuk, you could easily do that. If you want to stack him with, let's say you want to go Niners heavy, like you could still do that. Maybe you're going Ronnie Bell, probably not. Go KJ Osborne, and you have a ton of salary left over. You could easily fit Juwan Jennings in there. So there's a lot of ways to kind of manipulate this slate based on how you see fit. And then real quickly, I do just want to show you guys kind of the lineup builder, kind of what that is telling us is going to occur. So I'm just running it. give it 2 data points to go off of. I'm just running it raw though, not changing any of the settings or anything. So what it views as the top scoring lineup is actually kind of a crazy one. CMC, Purdy, they're getting kind of the upside with the quarterbacks, I guess. Then KJ Osborne, Josh Oliver certainly probably will get one. Like literally that would be it. Like that's the max he's going to get, like 1 catch, 10 yards maybe. Greg Joseph, a quarterback or kicker you could roll with. Yeah, I don't know about this Josh Oliver one. Obviously, he's cheap. He's min-priced, and the data is pretty much saying we can make good builds by tossing in someone like Josh Oliver. Let's see one without him here. Jake Moody then. So it's kind of telling us you might want to roll with the kicker. And then here's one with Kyle Juszczyk. Don't love that. At the same time, if CMC is going to be banged up, I guess I could see that in the realm of possibilities. It's certainly interesting that the data is telling us maybe fit in a value in there to potentially chase an optimal build. That's going to be all for this video, guys. If you want access to that lineup builder, is available at 905sports.com for just $10 a month. Gives you access to all the fantasy tools available on the website, including fantasy golf and props related content. Thanks for watching, guys. Let's have a good slate. And as always, let's keep cashing.